How's it going, YouTube? Come to another video, and today, guys, what the brand new is going to be the Critical Mass and Yu-Gi-Oh! So, this is something where I feel like the game is just getting to a point where it might not be able to recover, and there's also going to be, like, the tipping point to where this could be another, like, evenly situation. Obviously, very different states of the game, but I'll kind of go into that point a little more later on, and just kind of talking a little bit about like the recap and about what more that we can do moving forward into the format and how to counter certain things. If you haven't already checked out my sponsors over on Imperium Duelist, Dragonshield, Gem, Cloud, RAW, Grimoire, definitely go ahead and check it all out down below in the description. And without further ado, let's hop right on into the video. So I'm still kind of confused at the moment, because there was a huge argument back when like IO was legal, and there was like this whole side of the player base that was like, IO can stay legal, Imperial Order is super healthy, which is just insane, right? Like, just objectively incorrect. And Maxi, it's just banned. Like, this card is not coming back. It is just banned. And in the OCG, it finally got hit to 2. Which is like mind-numbing, right? Because we thought it would never happen. Like, that is like the OCG's entire identity is Maxi. Because Master Duel has it legal. It's never really been hit in the OCG. The TCG, however, is like, anti-Maxi, we don't like draw cards. Do not give them to us unless they're in the form of like Phantasme, right? Which is objectively okay, right? Like, Phantasme is fine. Impulse and Rescue, fine, right? Like, it's okay. But like the mass draw cards, to me, are crazy. And I guess I'm still just confused because, like, if they would have made Fualos separate effects where like there'd be a different Molcharmy that said from deck, and then Fualos was from extra deck, like how Perulia is strictly from hand, like, I probably would have been okay with it and been like, it sucks, but like, sure. Like, Perulia is one effect. This has 2 of the best spots possible in one card. And that makes this card effectively Maxi. And tell me how you feel about this card down in the comment section, because I'm genuinely curious. But to me, it becomes very frustrating. Because if I look at a card like Dominus Impulse, right? That card's broken, and we'll get into that. But in my mind, I've talked to people about this already. We're seeing an Ash Blossom in Dominus Purge. We're seeing Solemn Warning in Impulse. Is the next one Red Reboot? Just watered down? Like, I think that's what we get to, is we get a Dominus card that's a Red Reboot. And I think it probably happens. And that one probably shuts off, like, Light and Dark. 2 of the most revered attributes. So, I don't know how they're really going to go about it in the future. But a lot of the cards that we're not a fan of in general, IO, Maxi, all those Solemn cards at some point have been on the ban list, except Strike. And for me, it's kind of crazy how we're getting the craziest cards in watered down variants, but Impulse is like better. So, I don't know, for me alone, this is the critical mass for me. It's, do we get Red Reboot in a hand trap? That we already had as a hand trap, but this one's going to be restrictive. Do we get IO in a hand trap? Should we keep getting cards like Fualos that are 2 effects in 1? Because when we started with Perulia, and then we went to Fualos, it's a major jump. I wish it would have just been 1 effect. If it was just deck, and then just extra deck, I'd been okay with this. This is fine. Like, Maxi is objectively worse, right? Like, not objectively worse as in, like, worse, but it's just a better card at that point. But, like, right now, Fuaros and Maxi just mirror each other, in my opinion. Because, like, even if you give your opponent 2 draws, it's too much. And then you can resolve 2 in 1 turn. Too much. Like, you can drop the first one for Fualos, wait for them to commit, and drop the second. Or if you drop the first, they call by you, you chain the second. It's kind of crazy. And I don't know. I guess it's just really frustrating to see this in the game. And I still haven't really wrapped my head around how we got to this point. But we did. So, I mean, like, it's interesting. I still feel like you literally need to own them. I know people are like, well, so-and-so topped without it. But, like, it doesn't matter. Like, you need Fualos. Like, if you're not playing Fualos, the disadvantage is just through the roof, right? Like, it's insane. For the times that I saw Fualos, my opponent lost. When they saw Fualos and I didn't see the answer, I lost. Which was crazy. And, like, when I Fualos my opponent, he only gave me 2 draws. You know what those draws were? Super Polyum Seti. Like, crazy, bro. You know, it's... I can't get behind this. I cannot get behind this. So, Dominus Impulse. This card's really broken. I've seen so many instances this weekend of this card being used and ways that I didn't even think that it could get used. Dominus Impulse on Metaltronus. Dominus Impulse on Yeep. Ice Dragon's Prison. Blackbeard Effect. These are pretty crazy instances that you can just, like, Solemn Warning out of nowhere. So, I think this is a card that you just need to own a playset of. And if you can play this in your deck, it should be a playset in your deck. You should have this as a main deck staple. Like, this is better than Imperm. Like, this card's insane. A Solemn Warning from the hand when most of the Solemns, again, most, have been on the ban list and cost major amounts of life. So, in my opinion, a card like this, it really is raw bannable, as my friend Mike said. But at the same time, I think that, like, the Charmies and this probably just shouldn't exist. And I know it's like the whole, you have to adapt to the game and whatever people want to say to themselves to make themselves feel better about this getting dropped on them. But, like, it's still one of those things where, again, in the mindset of critical mass, where do we go from here? And that's where I'm like, Hand Trap Red Reboot, Hand Trap IO, right? Like, it's gonna get crazy, I'm sure. And I know that they're not even close to being done with the Dominuses or the Charmies, so we'll see, we'll see. Now, in a lot of the Azumina Snake Eye decks that are playing Fiendsmith are still playing a playset of Impulse. They're just now playing one Fiendsmith, and they're just using it to do the Caesar combo. And if they have to Impulse you, they'll Impulse you. So that's just a idea of how strong this card is. And another thing too, I saw it already being posted out a little bit. I made a post on my Twitter. The crazy thing of the weekend was definitely what we saw from the previous weekend, where you can go, your opponent Fuaros is you thrust set Featherstorm, you make Silhouette Rabbit, and then Rabbit set the Swamp Mirror. On your opponent's turn, you summon it, called Wind Wing Beast, and then flip Featherstorm and end your opponent's turn. So, kind of crazy. You side 3 and 3 for Thrust and Featherstorm, and then you just make a Rabbit. So, you give them one draw, and their whole turn's over. So, cards like Cosmic to out the Swamp Mirror is really good, or just like Imperming Rabbit is something that you might have to do, but it depends on how much they want to commit, because if you don't like Fuaros them, and they already have Featherstorm, and they have like a Desiree upright, it just becomes harder. So definitely very interesting, but this is something that is happening as well. Shoutouts to Mike Thomas for making top 32 at Niagara Falls. This was the list that he had posted. We do have the 4 horsemen in one deck. We have Shifter, Impulse, both Molcharmies, which is really crazy and can be very frustrating to play against. This is probably the most hated deck in all of history. The amount of negativity I hear coming from this deck is crazy. And I mean, can you blame them? Right? Like, the deck is skillless, bro. Like, it is not hard to play. And it's one of those things where you have just such a crazy core engine, and you play the 4 literal best cards in the game. Like, y'all were worried about Appaloosa, Baron Savage IP. I'm worried about Shifter, Impulse, Double Molcharmy. That's way scarier to me than an end board. Like, way scarier. And I think that's where the game is kind of, again, this idea of critical mass. Where do we go from here? Unless there's like a hard reset on the game, this is kind of crazy. And I even saw a post about how people are wanting Konami to make like a new age Yu-Gi-Oh anime with like today's cards. And I think that would be dope. Like that'd be so cool. And we see like the newest like Red Eyes, Blue Eyes, and Dark Magician cards all being used with like the original characters. And then we have new characters bringing in the newer archetypes in the show. I think that'd be pretty awesome. At a core, I still love playing Yu-Gi-Oh! I still love theorying. And I'm just making this video to kind of just voice how things went over the weekend, things I've seen, things that are in my mind, the critical mass that we're approaching in this game, and just really how we're going to move forward from this, because it is getting pretty ridiculous at the moment. But I wanted to make sure that I did a video on this. So again, like I said prior, let's have a good conversation about it in the comment section and where we could see that game going and how we feel about certain cards, because definitely an interesting position that I never thought we'd ever be in, to be honest with you. So another thing that I want to point out before anyone plays against Centurion, if you Dark Ruler a Blazar Dragon, the cost of a Blazar Dragon says banish this card till the end phase. So if you Dark Ruler a board of Centurion, and then you activate another card, and then your opponent goes Blazar effect, banish for cost, it will return in the end phase, which is pretty crazy, but it's a part of the cost to return during the end phase, and cost can always be paid. So if you weren't aware, you have to out it. Like, you have to out it if you're gonna out it, because it will come back. And that's something where a lot of people, I'm pretty sure this weekend, were caught off guard. And understandably so, because this is a very unique situation. But if you do Dark Ruler this card, I would say you have to kill them, but like, you can't, because you're under Dark Ruler. So I would not board in Dark Ruler versus Centurion, because you still have to deal with the Blazar. Now, this is my list from this weekend. I want to point out a couple things. One, moving forward, I will be playing a different deck. I'm going to try to find something that I can play that I do enjoy, that is a bit of a higher ceiling. I know that T already has a very high ceiling, but I want to play something a bit more meta-relevant at the moment. Reef, moving forward, would be cut from the deck 100%. Plays in Fualos. It happened to me, and that was unfortunate. Two of my losses were Shifter, Protos, and the other one was Molcharmy, Magnamut, and both were in Game 3 scenarios. So, I mean, like, can't do much, right? The Shifter, Protos, I got shifted Game 1, Game 2 I won, Game 3 I got shifted Protos, and I was like, crazy. Super Poly was really crazy. You can Super Poly off the Sylvia and the Desiree and make a Dragos Depelia. Another thing that you could do if you really want to is that you could Super Poly away like a Sylvia and another Dark Monster, like an IP and someone like a Mud Dragon, if you want to deal with a Desiree in a different way. So there is a lot of different options you have with Super Poly. I like this card a lot. If your opponent summons Azaroon, you can Super Poly the Rabbit and the Azaroon statue, which was crazy. That did come up as well. Main decking Molcharmy felt really good. If I saw it, I won. It's just a card that was just so broken. Being able to draw you into like pretty much anything in this deck. Like, I really want to cut down on Soleik too. I'd probably only play 2 moving forward. Just play 40 cards even with Molcharmy. But I've even thought about playing Impulse in this deck too, because you don't really get hurt by it. The only thing that sucks is you can't play Fenrir or like Keldo. So that's something where you kind of have to make that determination if you really find that worthwhile. But again, I just think Impulse is the craziest card right now. Like, if you can run it, you should. And if that means going second, which I already take out Kelva going second. Fenrir obviously is a really good card to keep in, but I usually take out like the extra planet anyway because I don't want to break. And if you see like Fenrir in your hand already, or if you see like Raidsaw, Tier Cash, it's like Fenrir is fine, and then you get like another body, but it's not like the greatest. I'd rather it be like different cards in my hand, right? More of like a unique hand. So you could pull out the Fenrir and the Keldo and then board in the Dominus Impulses. This was my side, and this was my extra deck. My extra deck still includes the Goddess. This did come up. I blanked an entire Yubel board and then negated the Abominable, and then went Imseti, Happy, Death, right? Like, that was pretty strong. In my sideboard, I did have the cross out for Dogwood, I had the cross out for D-Shifter, and I had the cross out for Phalos. I did play the Heartbeat. I did expect some people to be on Centurion, and the field spell can be hard to get rid of sometimes, so having a Heartbeat that you can search to clear the field spell is really solid, just because your opponent can't really do a whole lot to that, and you spin it back to the deck. The other thing, too, is like Typhoon. Your opponent goes Trudea, put the Primera down, Primera effect to summon itself, and then you Typhoon the Primera. It's kind of crazy. Or you hit like Pain and a lot of other things. I think Typhoon is just like one of my favorite cards right now, hands down. It's in most of my sideboards. I think the card's correct. Nibiru didn't really come out for me, unfortunately. It just is what it is. Overall, I thought that the event was smooth, but again, it's just, we're at a point right now where the game is interesting, and it's not that I don't enjoy the game. And I had some people who were like, if you don't enjoy the game so much, quit, right? And I'm just like, I enjoy the game, but like, there are still problems. And I always reference back to like IO, back when people were like, IO is fine and healthy, and I'm like, do you hear yourself talking? Right? Like, it's just not how things are. So I don't know, I think a lot of people just kind of troll, and they're just like, yeah, this is fine, and it's like, no. Like, no, it is not fine. So I don't know, and it could just be like one of those situations where you get like evenly matched and everyone's like, the game's over, like, this card is broken, we can't play anymore, like, we're gonna get blown out, but like, it's evenly okay, right? Like, we don't really care as much anymore. Like, it still hurts, but I think that these cards are just like miles better than that situation, right? So if we try to like compare, it's really just saying you have a solemn warning as a hand trap. Tell any Edison player that you can have solemn warning as a hand trap, and let's hear their response, right? Like, that's insane. Or having Maxi again, right? It's just, I don't know. I don't like it. I don't like it at all. But we'll definitely have to see how things go. And let me know what you all think about this down below in the comment section. I'm definitely interested to hear. Have a great night, though.